Hello and welcome to the Hutchinson House Reacts. I'm Leah Marlene and I really appreciate you stopping by. It is a wild time to be alive. The more and more I get accustomed with Donald Trump and the cabinet picks that he's picking, the more solid I am feeling about this administration. I didn't know a lot about Kristi Noem going in. And the more I know, the more I love. But of course, mainstream media is picking her apart because that's their job, essentially. It would be amazing if they actually just reported the news, if they actually just said, you know what, this person is a good pick, or that person's a good pick, or we like this, but we don't like that, if they're going to state opinions. But instead, it's always just a bashing on anybody that is pro-America, essentially. January 20th, Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 47th president. But first, watch Rachel Maddow have a little breakdown as per her usual.
Time for another Rachel Maddow Show public servant announcement. The incoming administration does not appear to be vetting the people they want to install in important jobs running the U.S. government. They have tried to get around doing FBI background checks and around any of the traditional vetting that is done by a normal presidential transition. They have even demanded that there shouldn't be confirmation hearings in the Senate for these people. It has been strange. It's been embarrassing to them. It has made for all sorts of unpleasant surprises already. But if this really is their plan, how much will the American people get to know about who these people are that Trump wants running the U.S. government? How did any of them even punch their ticket to get picked for these jobs? Well, in the absence of any real vetting the way it's supposed to go, we hope maybe a Rachel Maddow Show public servant announcement can at least help.
Apparently, Rachel Maddow thinks that she should have vetted these people. And the reason that they weren't wanting the FBI at the time to do their background checks, of course, everyone's vetted and has background checks. That's absolute lunacy on Rachel Maddow's part to say that. But again, this is why so many big networks are being sued right now, because they just say blatant lies. But the reason where she's twisting something is because we've unfortunately had a corrupt FBI. Let me know in the comments if you think the FBI has been on the up and up the last 4 years. Let me know what you think. But I think that's the main reason what she's misconstruing there. But as far as the vetting process goes, let's actually check in with Kristi Noem and hear from her herself as to why she's a very good candidate for this job and why Trump picked her.
Now, I'm a wife and a mother and a grandmother, a farmer, rancher, business person. I've served in our state legislature, in Congress for 8 years, and also a governor. I've spent my entire life in rural America. I understand what it means to work hard every single day and to build a better future for your kids and for all of our communities. I come before you today with a deep sense of responsibility and a humility as the nominee to lead the Department of Homeland Security, and also a commitment to the more than 330 Americans who we will work together to help serve and to keep safe and secure in their homes and in their communities.
We already know that people like Rachel Maddow make fun of women like this. Smart, intelligent, capable, hardworking Americans who actually care about the safety and well-being of this great country. One of the big arguments that the left always likes to bring up is, well, what are we going to do? Food is going to go up because a lot of the people working those fields are immigrants. While that's true, they do it legally. They come over legally and they're hired legally. I've talked to many farmers and ranchers who do hire immigrants, who love immigrants, and they love to hire them legally. And anybody in support of hiring them illegally, that's actually against the law. So that's criminal in itself. And so this is not something that we should be celebrating. This is something that needs to be reformed. Now, yes, immigrants can come over and work legally. They can come in by sponsorships from farmers and ranchers, by any businesses, right? That's how it works. That's how America's always worked. So this idea that we have to allow illegal immigration, otherwise farming will be shut down, is a lie. And I have never heard an actual farmer or rancher who says that. Only the people on the left supporting this illegal immigration say say that. So that's also a ridiculous argument. But this is another reason why Kristi Noem is a wonderful pick, because she gets the whole picture. She actually knows where food comes from. She actually does talk to farmers and ranchers, and she is one. So all of these things alone give her huge credibility. But Rachel Maddow, of course, would never, ever think so. But their big complaint is separating children from their families. And Tom Homan has addressed this many times. He's like, they don't have to be separated. Don't send your kids alone, or don't go without your kids. This is simple common sense. And if you're doing something criminal, yes, you're going to be taken away from your kids. This is just actual and factual common sense. And by the way, I would never send my daughter to another country on her own. So that alone is criminal. Nobody needs to be separated. That's common sense is lacking in the parents, in my opinion. But this is what they always like to bring up, not the 340,000 missing children due to these horrible open border policies that Biden and Kamala have put in place, but instead the 1,000 kids that are separated from their families because, I'm sorry, in my opinion, due to bad parenting, because you shouldn't put your kid in that position. Your job as a parent is to do the best thing for your kid. And the best thing for your kid is never to do something that's illegal. It isn't. It just isn't. So that's a whole other thing. But that's the point that they're always going to hammer home. And here we're going to hear how ludicrous some of these people's thinking is. And they want to just push aside. Watch this Senator Moreno actually grill this type of thinking. It is absolutely asinine that they discount people like Laken Riley. And this is much more commonplace, unfortunately, than we even realize, because these are just the cases that have slipped through the cracks and gotten to the news. I see things all the time on the Nextdoor app and on the Ring app. I've mentioned this many times before. Living in a sanctuary city, that is Denver, Colorado, I see it all the time. There is huge migrant crime. I have talked to 10 plus police officers who all confirm the same thing. They say there's not much they can do because they let these people go. All they can do is fingerprint them, but they essentially let them go because it gets caught up in the court system. Of course, if they do a heinous crime, they will put them in jail, but then it goes into the court system, and a lot of times they're released. That's if they're even caught. A lot of these people are on the run because people like our governor and our mayor support people like this, because Rachel Maddow supports people like this. It's absolutely asinine. Watch this.
For calling this hearing. Mr. Isaacson, if I could just start with you. In March of 2024, you wrote, "The murder of a nursing student in Georgia has a lot of people on the right talking about migrant crime like it's an actual issue." That'd be Laken Riley you were talking about?
Laken Riley was an unusual case.
Yeah, here, let's have a look. Here's Laken Riley.
Yes.
Her murder, her horrific murder at the hands of this illegal migrant who was also unlawfully paroled in the United States. Her death, not an actual issue?
It's a tragedy.
But not an actual issue?
Migrant crime is much less of an issue than U.S. citizen committed crime.
Not an actual issue? Those are your words. Her death, not an actual issue. I just want to get, no, you say.
Of course it's an issue. It's a tragedy.
So what do you mean by your post?
Issue.
It's not an actual issue, meaning we shouldn't be paying attention to it. Senate's wasting its time this week on the Laken Riley Act that would address the circumstances of her murder. What's your advice to us? We just discontinue those proceedings now?
I think the Laken Riley Act could do a lot of harm. It would allow me to say, oh, this person shoplifted, and that would be enough probable cause to get somebody deported.
Interesting. You're here. Who invited you to this committee hearing today, Mr. Isaacson?
The minority party.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're here as a spokesman for the minority party. I just want to make sure the record's clear on this. The spokesman for the minority party is advising the Senate that the Laken Riley Act is a bad idea and we ought to stop it. The spokesman for the minority party is saying that Laken Riley's death and migrant crime is not an actual issue. I can't frankly believe that I am hearing these words. You said it's not an actual issue. I read you the quote.
Laken Riley's death was not an actual issue.
You said that the murder of a nursing student in Georgia has a lot of people on the right talking about migrant crime. You put it in quotation marks, square quotes, like it's an actual issue. She's dead because of migrant crime, right?
Migrant
Let's
crime
try
is
something
much
else.
less
Here, do you
of an
know who this
issue.
is? Do you know who this young man is?
I do not.
Travis Wolf, 12 years old, from my state, murdered by an illegal migrant who was also, like Jose Ibarra, illegally paroled by the last administration.
Is your expectation that zero migrants?
Let me tell you what my expectation is that those who commit crimes in this country will be appropriately dealt with.
Absolutely.
And that we should not be allowing migrants who
Absolutely.
commit crimes into this country. And that, yes, migrant crime that kills people like Travis Wolf, whose death was shocking, whose death is inexplicable, indefensible. I actually do think, yes, I think it's an actual, wait a minute, it's my time, Mr. Isaacson. I actually think, and I want the record to be clear on this, that migrant crime is a real issue. I think the Laken-Riley Act is absolutely necessary. In fact, I proposed an amendment to the Laken-Riley Act that will cover people like Travis Wolf. I think that ICE ought to be required to detain those illegal migrants who commit violent crimes against children, like Travis Wolf. And yes, I happen to think, as a former prosecutor, I happen to think that their violent murders are actual issues. And the fact that you would say otherwise, sit here and advise the Senate that the Laken-Riley Act is a bad idea, that the whole thing is not an actual issue, it's all what, made up, I think is outrageous. I think it's absolutely outrageous.
And I couldn't agree more. It is absolutely outrageous. And then their talking point is that there are more crimes of citizens of the United States. Well, that's because those are more crimes that are tracked. Again, we can't track these people. A lot of these people are not tracked, and a lot of them are getting away. Again, all you have to do is have common sense, get a Ring app, see on Nextdoor, and you're going to see what's really going on. Or get on X and go to your local police station. I get on X and I see the Lakewood Police Department, Aurora Police Department, Denver Police Department, and they'll say somebody's on the loose. There was a stabbing, there was a shooting every single day. And a lot of times when they catch the people, unfortunately, a lot of times lately, they have been from Venezuela. Coincidence? I think not. So this is something that has to be addressed. And we are going to go after the criminals first. And this guy tries to say, oh, well, then we're going to get people for shoplifting. Well, guess what? Shoplifting is illegal too. Well, it was before Kamala came along, right? Shoplifting should be illegal. You shouldn't be able to steal, period. You come over to this country, you start stealing, harming people. It is a crime. Come over here legally and feed into this system. Help America become great again. And we love you. We love immigrants, obviously. People always forget that Donald Trump's wife is an immigrant, but she came over legally. There's a huge difference. We love immigration. Do it legally because that helps everybody. That helps the immigrant and the citizens, and immigrants become citizens. This is so wackadoo that people want it any other way. Let's hear some common sense on why Kristi Noem would be a perfect person for this job, and she will be.
My wife, Bridget, who's here, got a chance to meet you. And we left Iowa saying that person's really going to go far. And here we are 9 years later. You've been an amazing governor, amazing congresswoman, and now you're going to make an even better Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. So I think sometimes in D.C. we tend to complicate things. There is a current Secretary of Homeland Security. So why don't we take this opportunity to do a little job review and compare and contrast him to you. So just if you don't mind, I'll ask you some questions and you can give me an answer. Secretary Myorkas allowed you said it, just about 400 people on a terror watch list to come into this country illegally. If you were confirmed as Secretary of Homeland Security, how many people on the terror watch list would you allow into this country?
Well, Senator, we would work every single day until we had that number was zero. And if you look at the previous Trump administration over his entire 4 years, in comparison to Joe Biden's number, President Trump, it was 11 that were then removed from the country and faced consequences. When you look at the 382 that Joe Biden has let in and the policies continue, is shocking and needs to be changed immediately.
Myorkas let in about 12,000 murderers. How many would you target to let into this country?
My goal every day would be have no murderers allowed into this country in our communities.
Myorkas allowed 16,000 rapists. How many would you target to let in?
Every day I'd work to make sure that there was none let into this country.
He let 600,000, Myorkas, 600,000 people with criminal convictions. How many would you allow in?
We would work every day to make sure people are safe and that those with criminal convictions are immediately removed.
How many private jets would you have the United States taxpayers have fly into foreign countries to pick up people to bring them here?
Yeah, Senator, we will no longer be undertaking that mission at the Department of Homeland Security.
So not 700,000 individuals on private jets over the last 4 years. You would not have any.
No, I'll be working with President Trump to put in place his agenda in adherence to our federal laws.
And how many illegals will you plan to house in luxury hotel rooms in Manhattan at a cost of $6,000 per month?
Sir, clearly, Senator, during this election, the American people said they did not support that and that that would not be a part of this new administration.
How about sex change operations for illegals? How many of those would you suspect you would fund?
Senator, I believe that the Department of Homeland Security will be reevaluating its mission in this country to not allow that going forward under President Trump's goals.
And if you had an illegal migrant that was in this country and they committed a crime, would you offer them airfare from one state to another to evade law enforcement?
Sir, I will be following this nation's laws and the Constitution and make sure that all laws are adhered to.
And if you had been the head of the Department of Homeland Security a year or so ago, would you have closed a detention center in Georgia that would have allowed the release of somebody charged with a crime?
Sir, I don't have the specifics to that situation, but certainly that would not be something that I would want to have under my watch.
So just to be clear, Laken Riley would be alive today if you had been the Secretary of Homeland Security.
Senator, my hope is that that would be true, yes.
And again, this is why she is fit for this position. And this is why a lot of people like Rachel Maddow seem to just guffaw and they can't believe that we would want somebody like this. Well, I can, because many of us don't like crime like this. Many of us want to protect the legal immigrants that have come over and the citizens of the United States, because so many rape victims have been because of this open border. So many children missing, 340,000 plus children missing, are because of this open border. We have to have law and order. Let's watch, though, them further grill her on this actual point, because of course, this is the point that they try to drive home, is that she's separating kids from their families. That's all they've got, which is, again, just a moot point, because if you don't commit a crime, you're not going to be separated. Now let's watch Kristi Noem, how she handles this line of questioning about separating families, separating children. This is the left's talking point. And this Democrat senator, of course, wants to bring it home. Like, you're going to separate the kids. And that's what we're worried about. They're not worried about the 340,000 missing children. No. They're worried about the separation of children from their parents when their parents have decided to do something illegal. In my opinion, that already is child abuse. You shouldn't put your child in a position like that, period. But the way that she handles this question and the way that she sets him straight on the facts about the Trump administration are absolutely on point and savage. Trump is putting together the best team ever. I mean, we are so lucky. Watch this.
In my closing minute and a half, I just want to call your attention to an effort that I've led to help reunite children with their parents, children who were separated as a result of the so-called family separation policy in the last administration. I have introduced a measure called Keep Families Together, not only to limit separation of families at or near ports of entry, but also the Families Belong Together Act for several Congresses to help bring the children, the kids who were victims of this policy and who still are not back with their parents. I hope that you will support that kind of effort.
Senator, the Trump administration never had a family separation policy. They had a zero tolerance policy, which said that our laws would be followed. What I'm alarmed by is the over 300,000 children that went missing during the Biden administration. And when we talk about children and what they're potentially facing as far as victimization in this country and the trafficking that's going on, this administration's lack of desire to find out where those children are or what they may be going through is alarming to me. So I want to stop that.
Because my time is expiring, I'm just going to interrupt again with apologies to say, let's put aside.
I can't put aside 340,000 children.
Labels. Let's put aside what happened in the past. There are still 1,000 children who are separated and waiting to be reunited. I'd like your commitment that you're going to continue the effort to reunite them with their parents.
Senator, keeping families together is critically important to me and to this country. I'm concerned about Laken Riley's family, that they no longer have her. I'm concerned about the fact that we have people in this country that don't know where their children are, or people in other countries who sent their children here and they've been lost by this administration. So yes, my focus will be to keep families together. We will uphold our law and we'll make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our children safe from the trafficking and the drug epidemic that's hit this country.
I'm going to end on an optimistic note and say I take that as a yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That was a perfect response by Kristi Noem. They always try to corner you into, what about these 1,000 kids? What about 340,000 kids? Yes, we're concerned about the 1,000 plus 340,000. And that's why Kristi Noem is perfect for the job. People like Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, they actually understand the real gravity of this issue. And they're not going to just put aside, he says, let's just put aside the 340,000 kids. No, we can't. We're not just putting them aside. We care about them. We care about them as much as the 1,000 kids. We care about all people. And that's what they keep missing. They want, it seems like, to just care about the criminals. And no, not all immigrants are criminals. We already have addressed that. See, again, common sense. Tomorrow, common sense will be back in the White House. I am so grateful. Maybe by the time you watch this video, we'll already have common sense back in the White House. Let me know what you think about that.
You recommended family separation.
I recommend a zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan, with
family.
all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're in the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way.
Boom. That's exactly right. If you want to seek asylum, go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. Don't put your kids' lives in jeopardy. Don't do that. If you're in an unsafe place, don't make it more unsafe by separating from your children. Just don't do that. That should be illegal on its own. I can't believe in Colorado that the law now says that you can leave an infant alone. Can you imagine that? When I was a kid, the law stated that you had to be like 13 or something, 12 or 13 to be left alone. Look it up. In Colorado, you do not have to be of any age to be left alone. Why is that? Because they want to make it, because we're a sanctuary city, I guess. So it's like, it's fine if you leave your kid or whatever. That should be a crime. That alone should be a crime. Just leaving your child alone should be a crime. I think Kristi Noem is amazing. I loved her response. Of course, the whole rest of the hearing was just more of the same from the Democrat senators, just grilling her on that separation. And, you know, are you going to go after everybody? Well, yes, everybody, anybody who's committing a crime. And if they're illegally here, then they should be deported. Anyone who's a citizen committing a crime should be penalized for that, right? Should go through the court system and be penalized. But the problem is we've had this major loophole in the Biden administration that says all immigrants are fine. And even if they've committed really heinous crimes in other countries, they're fine to come here. And this is a sanctuary city. So unless you're racist, you should love murder and rape and all that. And that's ending. It's all ending. Thank God. Some people are even deporting themselves now. That's a good thing. If you don't have any business being here and you can't come in legally, maybe you should just go ahead and deport. But I'm more interested in knowing what you think. Do you think that Kristi Noem is going to be perfect for this job? Do you think that she could be the Secretary of Homeland Security? Do you think that Trump is appointing the best people for the jobs and that his vetting process goes far beyond Rachel Maddow's dinging of the bell and her little gossip stories? What do you think? And do you like Bondi? Please watch this other video I did on Bondi just recently and let me know your thoughts in the comment below. I appreciate you being here. If you have subscribed, thank you so much. And if you haven't, what are you waiting for? Come on, join the party. I would love to have you here.